And so my job, my role as a writer is to have you come there with me. So if I can do my job properly, I'm populating that world and I'm encouraging you to come to that world with me. For me, the job that I most love is writing. For you, you'll find your way, be it writing, be it whatever. But if I can encourage you, whatever you do, read widely.
What technique do you use for a paragraph for a sentence?
Technique do I use to write a paragraph or a sentence? How do you mean?
Like describing a place or a landmark or something like that.
Look, if I was to try to encapsulate the scene that I've just seen of you coming up to the microphone, I look at that scene. I can't describe every desk. Can I just go back to the vision? Can I just go back to the footage of Coonamble? Oh, no, I can see you right there. Okay, I can't describe there. What I can see there are 10. I can see there are 10 desks and there are 15 students. I could write 1,000 words to describe that scene. What I'd be looking for is the telling detail. What I particularly note is there is sort of a wan light there on the left of that screen. So I would try to open the scene. The wan light drifted into the schoolroom where 16 students were listening to a man, a big buffy man speaking from Sydney. Whatever. I'd try to encapsulate to get the feel, and I'd write it very quickly, and then I'd look at it and I think that doesn't really work, because as soon as I've said it, I'm thinking that doesn't really work. But the important thing is for me to get something down on the paper, something on my screen that I can look at, and even if it doesn't work, I can at least think why it doesn't work. How can I do it better? It's something that I suppose the more I write, the more instinctively it comes. And when I started out, it didn't come as quickly or as easily. Now it comes easily.
What were the difficulties you encountered when you were writing Charles Kingsford Smith, and were these the same as when you were writing Les Darcy?
Every book that I write has different obstacles, and with Charles Kingsford Smith, the key problem that I had is that I became so absorbed in how stunning the story was, not just of him, but for the history of aviation, that I couldn't bear to leave anything out. And so it ended up being 240,000 words. But that was one of my problems of how do I, really I would have loved to have written 400,000 words. The other one, I suppose, was how do I get this information across in a manner. I had so many different stories from different parts of the world, all of which were histories of aviation and different parts of histories of aviation. The challenge I had was to weave the stories and the anecdotes together so they became a cohesive whole. So I'd started out writing about Charles Kingsford Smith, but I realised that really to do justice to him, I needed also not only his life, but his life and times. So the challenge was to find a way to tell the story that it didn't feel like 100 disjointed stories, but that it all felt like one story. So that was the key challenge. In terms of the Les Darcy book, I've always said that I think the two greatest stories in Australian history are the story of Les Darcy and the story of the shipwreck of the Batavia in 1629 off the west coast of Australia. And the essence of the Les Darcy story, absolutely stunning, of a young man who was Australia's greatest hero in 1914. And the reason he was a great hero was because he was a fantastic boxer, fantastic middleweight boxer. And there used to be, the Americans would come out to Australia to box just not far from where I am down here in Woolloomooloo. They would come and there'd be 20,000 people that would see Les go up against the big American, and they'd put their wages down and Les would win. And he became the hero of all of Australia. And then when the war broke out, the First World War broke out, the government wanted Les Darcy to be on the recruitment posters to say, I'm going to Gallipoli, I'm joining the AIF, you should too. And Les Darcy said, no. He said, look, I have a loyalty to Australia, but my first loyalty is to my family. I want to continue to box to get enough money to pay for my family. Then I'll join up, but I'm not going to be going on posters. It will be for other men to decide whether they want to go individually, but I will not lead men to their death. And what then happened is he went overnight from being Australia's great hero to being attacked in the media, attacked by the press, attacked by the government for being a coward, and he used to be lauded for his great heroism. He was able to take on the Americans. Suddenly he's opening up envelopes and a white feather is fluttering out, being accused of cowardice. And so with Les Darcy, again, my challenge there was to try to encapsulate the heavy, heavy emotions of the time and to give some feel of what that was like.
Barraba Central School.
G'day, Callum.
What questions do you ask to make people feel comfortable to tell their story when you're writing their biographies?
What I try to do, I've learnt as I've gone along. I mentioned with Nick Farr-Jones, and I mean, over 20 hours of tape. Well, that 20 hours of tape was really 20 times 1 hour. I was snatching 45 minutes with him here, an hour there. He was so busy. When I did John Eales, what I did with John Eales, another Wallaby World Cup winning captain, is I had him over to my place at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't let him leave until 6 o'clock that night to try to get a huge slab of time with him. And that worked fantastically well. And the relaxing part, I suppose, is I ease them into it and say, all right, you tell me your story. So you tell me the parts of your story that you're most familiar with, the parts of your story that you're most impassioned by. And if you put a microphone in front of somebody and say, tell me about your life, it usually flows out of people. I like my books to start in the beginning and then work my way down to the end, and I like the climactic moment to come to the end. And so when I'm talking to my subjects, the first thing is for them to tell me their stories. Then there'll be troublesome things, there'll be contentious questions. I leave the contentious questions till the end, so I know more and more about my subject. And then if I have to ask the questions, the more confronting questions, for whoever they may be.
Gundagai.
How do you decide who or what you are going to write about for your book?
It's a process, it is a joint process between me and my publisher.